Then I realized by going backwards and looking at, so what made that process successful? How come we got this result? And I noticed this is the common pattern, that at beginning, it's you follow an interest and follow results. There are some results happening over there. What's going on? And in that process, you try different things, add this and add that, and they show themselves as in what's working and what's not working. And then you end up with process of elimination, which is something that doesn't come naturally to most people. People, right. They may still think the answer to a better is always going to be more tools, more software, more providers, more. So that's a game of quantity.
Right.
Process of elimination helps us with the game of quantity. So.
Hi, I'm Chris Ippolito, and welcome to Get Coach 360, where I'm documenting my journey from employee to entrepreneur while featuring the coaches that are helping me along the way. Each episode, these coaches provide actionable advice to help me and you, the audience, find more success as entrepreneurs. I invite you to join the journey so we can go and grow together.
Welcome to another episode of Get Coach 360. In this episode, Chris sits down with Dr. Kayvon K from Simplify.zone, a self-described simplifier devoted to helping entrepreneurs expand effectiveness and resilience with a mission to make it simpler. Kayvon shares his insights on a wide array of topics, from the importance of clear and precise communication to being mindful of the preferred mode of communication of team members to always have a time frame in mind when planning, and more. This is definitely an episode you'll want to watch every second of, as Kayvon breaks down some of the most difficult barriers of entrepreneurs and presents actionable solutions in simple, practical terms. And, as always, we'll close with Kayvon sharing his advice for how you can take action now to level up wherever you need it most.
Hi, Kayvon.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the Get Coach podcast. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's been quite a technical journey for us.
Yes, we have tested so many things with the audio and microphone and all of that.
Yeah, which it sounds great right now. So okay. I'm sure we'll be good for the entire episode. I'd love if we can start off like I do with every episode. If you'd like to share a little bit of your story, your journey as to how you became a coach, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Let's start with. Actually, that's a good question. Actually, let me try this. I want to guide this a little bit more.
Okay.
When was that first moment that you realized you wanted to be able to help other people through the service of coaching?
Around somewhere in 2013 or 12 or so. The thing is, after high school, I went to university and I studied medicine and I became a doctor. And towards the end of it, I realized I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And after that, I moved to Vancouver, Canada, which is where I live now. And
a fellow Canadian.
Yes. This city has been good to me.
Yeah.
So I knew this is back in 1998. So I didn't know what I want to do, but I knew that I wanted to work with computers and internet. I was already good with computers, making money with computers and that sort of thing. So I taught myself web design. And back in 1998, this was hot if you could be able to do web design. So I started to do websites and e-commerce websites and that sort of thing. And then I got interested in websites that they do something. What is that? I realized that's what they call JavaScript. So I played around with that, taught myself JavaScript, which led into teaching myself PHPs and database and C#. And after a while, I was an internet programmer. Then I had an internet programming company. Then I got interested in what these websites can do for people, the business side of it, the online marketing side of it. So I started my second company, which was an online marketing company. And in doing that, I noticed the highest value that I'm delivering to my clients, the most helpful part to them, and also the part that I'm enjoying the most are the conversations that I'm having with my clients. At the time, we used to call them strategic conversations.
Right.
So I noticed that that's what I'm enjoying. So I just cut everything else out and I kept the conversations and I called it coaching. So I have been helping my clients with that, with business coaching and business setup and online marketing and that sort of thing Later, I got interested in being more effective and more efficient, i.e. productivity. So I got into that as well and got certified with productivity coaching. So yeah, that's how I ended up being a coach, as in by following what was interesting to me, following what was helping other people, because you know, of course, the work that we do is we get paid for the work, but the real payment is when you feel that they got value, or that unexpected message that you get on your phone or on an email that somebody's thanking you from the work that you did a year ago.
Right.
So that's where the real payment is. So I wanted more of those moments for me. So I just refined it, and here we are with the company called Simplify. I'm a simplifier. People tell me then when we talk, they somehow find clarity, the ability to cut through BS. So
Yeah.
that's what's happening in the conversations.
Yeah, and that's awesome. It's what our topic is going to be, but I find it interesting that your journey ended up being through the process of elimination is how you ended up becoming a coach, right? Because you had said that the part that you enjoyed the most was that one aspect of guiding and coaching them on, it sounds like, on digital marketing, probably like growing their business. But
Correct.
then what you got rid of was all that other stuff. And I think that's really awesome. And the topic that we wanted to talk about, which was, you know, that methodology and that approach that you take of helping people simplify things so that they can have more success. And in one of our pre-interview calls, just our original calls that we did, you kind of shared a bit of an outline and a framework of something you're working on. Did you want to go through that, and we'll kind of explore that a little bit more?
Yeah, I can talk about that, but before that, I like to talk about this whole idea of simplifying.
Sure.
Kind of. I like to answer your question in two different ways, if you don't mind. One is about what you said, as in process of elimination. What is it that we can do to get the same result, but our actions are not addition, they are subtractions? What is it basically that I can remove from everything else, from everything that I'm doing, and still get the same result, or still good enough results? You know, we hear this in multiple formats, like 80-20 is basically, 80-20 rule is basically this idea. But at the beginning, because we are novice, because we're new to something, because we don't know what's going on, we just add more. How about this? How about this? How about that? I'm going to install this. I'm going to, you know, hire that company, which is fine. That's the process that I noticed that we need the research until we get enough knowledge to see what's happening. The day that we start to see patterns is the day that we can start actually making strategic decisions and basically move from being a startup to a business, going from testing to see what works to now growing, scaling what is working. So it's like that. For many occasions in my life, I did it by intuition. Then I realized by going backwards and looking at, so what made that process successful? How come we got this result? And I noticed this is the common pattern, that at the beginning, it's you follow an interest and follow results. There are some results happening over there. What's going on? And in that process, you try different things, add this and add that, and they show themselves as in what's working and what's not working. And then you end up with process of elimination, which is something that doesn't come naturally to most people. People, they may still think the answer to a better is always going to be more tools, more software, more providers, more. So that's a game of quantity.
Right.
Process of elimination helps us with the game of quantity. So that's one observation that I had about how success works, either for myself or for my clients.
Question on that. What would be one of the more common areas to eliminate, as far as, so if a business owner, new entrepreneur is struggling and they're just feeling there's almost like this resistance for them. Have you identified that there is kind of a common theme or a common area that they should be looking to eliminate and subtract from?
Communication. I have noticed that,
Communication.
yeah, so many
Like
people
reduce communication.
Simplify and minimize. Yes.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Most people, when you talk to them, they have an email problem. They say, I'm getting so many messages from so many different sources, and it's, overwhelming, and I have so many unread messages and this and that. So we need to do something about that.
Right.
And also we do things that they are not necessary. For example, we on text messages or any kind of messaging or email, there are emails that we don't really need to send. All of the ones that the reply is okay, got it, thank you, gotcha. We don't need those.
I don't do those.
Yeah. Well, the
I'm
more
laughing because
the more you're gonna get.
Oh, for sure. I'm laughing because my day job, I get a lot of those.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you get that email and the natural response would be one of those like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
I don't send those types of emails. And when I get them, I just go junk right away.
Thank you. It's like those pop-up messages on the computer that it says something and there is only one button to click on.
Yeah.
So why are you telling me this message if I only have one option to one button to click on? So I just never read those and just click them, and my computer never broke. So going back to communication, removing the type of communication that is not to our advantage as far as what's our modality of the conversation, communication. So let me put it this way. Basically, there are two ways to the communication: outgoing and incoming. Mm-hmm. So incoming is sometimes reading, understanding, getting information, all of that. Outgoing is explaining ourselves, selling, and all of that. So to really simplify it, I'm going to ask you this, and I hope your listeners also answer the same question in their mind while we're talking about this. So Chris, when it comes to receiving information, are you a listener or a reader?
I think I would say I prefer reading for receiving information. I'm a little torn, to be honest, because I do like both, because I love reading books and I love listening to podcasts and audiobooks. But I'm going to say I'm a reader. Let's say that's the one that I prefer the most. Yeah.
And when it comes to explaining yourself in meetings or in conversations, are you a writer or a talker?
Talker.
Okay.
That one I know.
Okay. So there you go. So now you know your dominant ways of communication. You're a reader, but a talker. So stop sending emails to people. Talk to them. Right? And when it comes to receiving information, don't answer the phone. Have people email you.
Okay. In that case, then I would actually say, for clarity purposes, I prefer listening and I prefer talking.
Okay.
But
yes, very good. Yeah.
This leads me into some interesting questions. Okay. Yeah. So if you are identified as somebody who prefers to talk to be able to communicate effectively, but you might, without, maybe you don't even identify as this way, but you are a bit of a long-winded person. I can be guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah.
So now the receiver, my wife just chuckled in the background.
I'm helping your marriage basically here.
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay.
So
you're welcome.
if the receiver of that
it
is just gets a little frustrated because they're like, oh my goodness, like get to the point already.
Yeah.
Can that not, in a sense, start complicating things, or is that more once you've identified your preference, you then work to just get stronger at it, right?
Got it.
So as far as being a communicator of in verbal versus written, it would mean I would want to focus more on improving my verbal skills. Is that kind of how you would start guiding people?
Short answer is that.
Okay.
But I want to bring clarity to your question, because what we were talking about was a what question then the problem that came up was a how question,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So that how of going too much into details can apply to any medium. Could be talking, could be reading, could be writing, and all of like most of the books that we read, they can be much shorter, but publishing companies, they need a thicker book, so they need to fill it out with stuff. So let's go into that. Let's finish the first part of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The what part of it. So I am also a listener talker, right? Therefore, I like to use tools that they work that way. For example, for my communication with my clients, I always ask them to install and use Voxer. Are you familiar with Voxer?
Yeah. Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guy, mentions it quite a bit because that's one of his primary communication tool with his clients he coaches, as well as internal at ClickFunnels.
Yes. And it's a great way to communicate. Lots of people say, well, you can also send your voice in MMS as SMS or WhatsApp. And that, yeah, they are all doing that. It's a matter of performance too. And Voxer is the highest performing one. It's designed around voice, then has the other options of sending a text or file and that sort of thing, as opposed to the other ones designed around text and voice being an extra option. So the algorithms and all of that works best for that. So which kind of is designed in a way to help you with the second question as well, because if you're doing a Vox, you can't just say record and go. You have to hold your thumb down while you're speaking. Okay. So that active holding thumb down, it has the option to just hit the button, but that's a good limitation to put around yourself. Same way that deadlines help us. If you know you have a short amount of time, you'll get things done faster. So if you have to hold your thumb down, this is a constant reminder of get to it, get to the point, and that sort of thing.
Is there a time restraint on Voxer messages? No,
you can just talk, which is
you can
actually
talk for 30 minutes.
You can, which is actually the next thing I was going to say. And this is something that they say from copywriting. I forgot who said it, but the question is short copy versus long copy. And the right answer is long copy is okay, long-winded copy is not.
Right.
Okay, so it's, as you said, it's our verbal skills. How good are we to structure our sentences and get to the point in a precise kind of a way instead of going all over the place. Of course, there are some conversations that they're brainstorming and we don't know. Let me just think loud. That's allowed. But when we're sending a Vox to someone, we have that 30 seconds before to think, okay, what do I want to say? And just say it and send it. But all of these apply to email as well. So as you can see, because we do a lot of work with other people, nobody wins alone, basically. Communication is something that we have to deal with. And if we don't control it, it will go all over the place. So that's one of the things that I pay attention to, because to me, limitations and subtractions are the same kind of tool as in helping us. I love limitations, as in there's a deadline, or I only have 2 hours to do this, or sometimes my clients, this is something that I read and it really works. This is post-COVID, so if we get to that life back again, that we can work from a coffee shop, take your laptop to a coffee shop, but do not take your charger.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's smart.
Okay, so you don't have any other option of just sitting there and browsing the internet and saying, no, the laptop has another hour or so. You gotta get the work done.
Yeah.
So that limitation is very helpful. So we eliminated the charger from that scenario. Right. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. Another area that I'm kind of being selfish with my questions here, because I'm kind of going through something with the day job as far as how do you, so you've identified how you prefer communication. Mm-hmm. How do you train other people in your preference of communication?
That's very good segue, and there's nothing selfish about it. I'm sure what we're talking about, everybody
I'm sure
else,
there's other people thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You have, let's call it your team, people that you're working with, people that they are above you, same level or below you, right? They report to you or you report to them, or however the communication is. At the end of the day, having a team that works well together is a better payoff as opposed to one individual in there. Everything is designed around that person, right? Because let's say if you and I are working together and we are both talker listeners, we don't have a problem. But what if I am a reader? So you do the thing of like going out of your way to make it easy for me. Maybe you can transcribe something, or write a short email, or get yourself to, with Kayvon, because he's a reader, I want to do this, be cooperative and give him this gift, make it easy for him. I'll write for him. And I'll also tell him, when you want to reply back to me, please send me a voice. So this way that people work with each other. So not only you want to know if you are a reader or a listener or a talker and all of that, ask the immediate team people around you and see what their preferences are, and kind of find out what's the best way to communicate with each person, incoming and outgoing, and start practicing that and improve the cooperation and collaboration, and the whole team is going to work better. None of us are going to be 100% within our productive zone, but the whole team elevates much higher. So training is part of it, as in reminding ourselves and also doing what's good for them. So they want to, do the same for you. Unless you're the boss and you just tell them, this is it. This is how you do it. This is not a democracy. My company, my way. Just do it.
This is just the way we do it. It's definitely a learning experience as far as the communication. To be honest, it's the number one thing that I kind of preach in my day job, is just more communication, which is really interesting because I just caught myself there. I said the more communication, which, based on what we just talked about, it's not necessarily more communication, it's clear communication.
Clear communication
is going to resolve a lot of issues. Okay.
So being precise is not the same thing as being clear. So we want to be both.
Clear
be precise.
And precise.
Yeah. Because let me give another example. We sometimes use words thinking they are synonymous or using that way, but they are really not. So I may say, hey, you want to do that thing? It's simple. But what I really meant was it's easy. Because something that is easy doesn't mean that it's simple. Or when something
or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Let me give you 2 examples. I learned this from my friend who is nutrition and health and workout and that sort of business. Losing weight is easy. 2 steps. Eat less, move more. Okay. See, I just did that. It's actually not easy. It's simple. Move more, eat less. But it's not easy.
Right.
On the other hand, something like driving is a very complex task. Your hand-eye coordination, a couple of mirrors and windows and all sorts of direction, and music is playing, all of that. It's a complex task, but we are all doing it. So it's complex but easy. And something could be very simple but hard. So hard and easy are different contexts rather than easy and simple and complex. So being I may have been very clear, as in saying, when I say driving is easy, I may have said driving is simple, but the second one is not precise. It's not correct. It's incorrect, actually. And so it's important for me to have a clear communication and precise communication.
And obviously that takes time to develop that skill set, but do you have any suggested exercises or ways that people could help develop more clear and precise communication, whether it's written or spoken?
Yeah, I learned this from my mentor in the university. So we were interns in the surgical ward, and it's your communication determines someone's life, right? Because if I'm the one who examining the patient, and I'm not clear or precise in describing what I found in the examination as far as pain and how acute it is, where the location of the pain and this and that, he may pick up the knife and go in or not. So I have to speak in a way that he knows what the next decision is. Sometimes we do that to keep ourselves, not take responsibility, basically, to say that either way we're going to be fine, but protecting ourselves doesn't help anyone. So when we think about it like that, as in this is life-threatening, this has to be important. Think of a pilot, that moment of taking off. There is no ambiguity about that. Now we go up, right? So everything like that. So words like, it's kind of like, let's remove that from our vocabulary. Either something is something or isn't. It's kind of like this. It's kind of, we're trying to tippy-toe around things like somebody is not nice to us. When we're saying, that's not very nice. No, just tell them that was nasty. Be precise, be clear, and this and that. If you have to do only one thing, and this is kind of the first rule. Yeah, I just said it. This is the first rule. Yeah, I caught myself. This is the first rule that I have in working with my clients. Nobody is allowed to start any sentence with yes, but. Okay, because this just negates everything else, and there is no listening and all of that. There is no yes, but. Not verbal nor implied. If you can't say what you have to say without that format, you don't say it. You keep it to yourself, and you wait until the time that you can say it with another way of saying it. So yes, but is one of our biggest enemies when it comes to precise and helpful and clear communication. So let's not start any sentence with yes, but. There are other things that people say that they're helpful, like never use the word every. Like every time, you always do this and that. Like those, let's remove those. Let's be precise. Most of the time you piss me off, or most of the time I'm very satisfied with your work. Whatever that is, just say that, and people appreciate it after a while. It would be a surprising at the beginning, but then when they realize the value of it, it would be what do they call it? A breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
I was kind of laughing there because we have that rule in our household. It's not really a rule per se, but it's almost like a game. If we catch each other, my wife and I, saying you always do this or you never, we poke fun at each other for saying it because it's really not true, because there's always going to be that I just said it there. There's instances in which that becomes a false statement. So yes, to use it is exactly like you said. It's not precise or in some cases clear.
And not correct either.
That's right.
I'm still doing that a lot, as in saying always and never and this and that. Going back to being more productive, improving ourselves. We have to do the same thing when we talk to ourselves or describe ourselves to other people, basically the labels that we give ourselves. I hear people say, I'm a procrastinator. Well, there is no such a thing. You procrastinate on some stuff. At the same time, you get other stuff done without procrastination. So let's determine which area, which type of task you procrastinate, because there are other things that you don't. You just go. Nobody is procrastinating on everything. But when I say I'm a procrastinator, I'm a procrastinator when it comes to making phone calls. So that would be our opinion of ourselves as well. So we need to be clear and precise, even when we're talking to ourselves, about ourselves, or any of that.
Yeah, and we could probably go down a very deep rabbit hole on that one, because there's even psychological reasons behind it, hence why affirmations are so powerful. Right?
Yeah.
If you keep saying I'm a procrastinator, you keep reinforcing that behavior.
Becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Which is a shortcut to who do you want to be? Start saying that.
Yes, the positive side of it.
Yeah.
What are some other areas? So we touched on communication as far as a common area to try and simplify. What's another area that's quite common for people to look to subtract or simplify that tends to lead to success?
Yeah, it's a timing of things. There are many questions that they are valid, but they are being asked at the wrong time. And the biggest, most common example is that people ask, either from themselves or in conversation, ask the how question too early. Before we are clear and precise and satisfied with the what, we don't have to talk about how yet. So getting to the how too early, like in business, somebody says, "Hey, I need more people coming to my website. I need more visitors."
Right.
But how are you going to do that? We haven't finished with the how, with the what yet. We need more visitors because we need more sales and this and that. Let's really first understand what is it that we want. Then we get to the how part of it. Or how is something that can be done later. So you see behind me, I have the 3 steps process of, getting things done and simplifying things and staying on track and all of that. Mindset, as in everything that we most of the stuff that we have been talking about so far. We were talking about ways of communication, ways of being precise, ways, our ability to focus, looking at it from which angle. All of that is in the mindset part of it. The second one is strategy, which is all of that what question, or what question is a big part of it. And until we're done with execution, we haven't moved to strategy. We haven't moved to execution yet. And execution, when it is the right time to ask the how question, and it is not the right time to ask the what questions anymore.
Right.
So the timing of order of things or sequence of things is another thing that gets on people's way to go where they want to go.
I like that, because the reason I really like what you just shared there, a lot of my guests have shared the concept of why you start with the question, why? Why are you doing this? Let's find the underlying motivation. Simon Sinek made it very popular with his book, Start With Why. And I believe his called the Golden Circle, where in the middle it's why, then what, and then how on the outside of it. And you're actually the first one to take it to that next step of, sure, it's great to figure out your why, then what?
Yes.
Right. Then you got to figure out okay, now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And then the final question being how, which is the execution.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you've brought that up. And I'm surprised I didn't catch that earlier, because that really, those are very important questions to be answering for aspiring entrepreneurs like the audience is. Great. Figure out your why. And then the next logical step is what, and then how.
Yeah. Let me tell you like a analogy that makes it practical. Imagine, those jet air shows that they do, like in Canada Day or 4th of July and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a complex thing, right? So I'm sure they start planning it months in advance and training and practicing and, all of that. So on the day of the show, I assume they start with the meeting, the final briefing meetings in front of a whiteboard somewhere, maybe. And then they walk to their airplanes, and some technicians are already preparing the airplanes, and they get in there, they start checking their instruments. Then they get on the ramp, then they speed up, then they take off. They go to the right altitude, they do the twists and turns, then they come back down and they land, and I don't want to know what's the right term, park their airplane. If that's bring it to the hangar. So that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is when the pilot is in the cockpit and it's time to test the instruments, his mind thinking about the twists and turns, or think about landing. It's not that's invalid question. It's the wrong timing for that question. So when I work with my clients, they come up with so many questions, and so many of them I say, good question, but we're gonna park it for later. We come back to this. So by taking that question and parking it for the right time, they're validated, because the question is valid. And at the same time, we stay focused on what we are working on at this stage. Are we at the why stage or what stage or how stage? And those kind of questions come to the picture. The ones that they're not, that's the landing question. We're not at the landing yet. That's a, twist and turn question. We're not there yet. So knowing the stages of the business, or what part of the business we're working on. Are we working on lead generation, or lead nurture, or lead conversion, or delivery, or upselling? There are many, many questions. So just by separating and these clear lines between them, we bring a lot of clarity to the conversation.
Yeah, I like that. Of course, in my head, I'm going like, where am I at? So, because the podcast in a sense is a part of the business that I'm building on the side. And I mean, I know my why. That is, it's very, very clear for me. The what, I suppose there could be more for me to unpack there.
Right.
And then comes I know there's a few questions that I need to ask as far as how to monetize, right? How to grow, how to do all that kind of stuff. And I know I've been catching myself thinking more about that.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if, and obviously this is the value of having a coach, I'm wondering if I'm ready to get to that point, or if perhaps I still have more questions to ask of myself in that what area.
Okay.
So when you're obviously it's much easier when you're with your clients and you can kind of navigate them through that. But when somebody like myself, and I'm not in that position to sit down with somebody and kind of talk it through, what would be some almost like an exercise that somebody could walk themselves through that process to make sure they're asking themselves the correct question at the right time, if you have an exercise?
It is a question, or it's a habit, or an exercise, whatever you want to call it. It's a time frame. So the questions become relevant or irrelevant, valid or not, clear or not, depending on the time. So we first talked about clarity. An example is, one day I'm going to be wealthy. Okay, what does that mean?
Right.
What is wealthy? Right? Do you mean millions of dollars in bank account, or do you mean 5 houses? What are you talking about? Or what is one day? Is it tomorrow? Is it 6 months from now? So that second part, the time frame, helps with us with the clarity of the question. So a bunch of questions, we don't have to worry about them now. They're good questions, but they go away later. So the thing is, on the strategy planning part, give it a time frame. I'm going to do my planning and strategy and answering questions for the next 30 days, for the next 90 days. So pick a time frame and have all of your questions and thinking and planning and strategy and how and what's and how's related and relevant to 90 days. Obviously, there are goals that we want to achieve 3 years from now, 1 year from now, and that sort of thing. And that's fine. If you're doing 3-year planning, then those questions come up. So giving it that time frame allows us to have that filter to find out which question or which thought or which idea is relevant or not. Should I park it or should I use it? Kind of a thing. Also, the same way that we started this conversation by following our physiology as opposed to trying to force it, are you a listener or talker? That sort of thing, works with our achievement as well. What does our physiology say? Because in order for us to achieve our goals and make progress, we need to stay connected with our direction, vision, goal, whatever we want to call it. We need to be connected with it. And that connection, because if we're not, then everything else is going to sound good and look good, and distractions, and we end up doing many things because we're not connected to that. Connection is in 2 levels. There is the mental/intellectual part of it, and there's the emotional connection. Mental or intellectual is as in you on a conscious and subconscious level have to believe that this is doable. Okay, so somebody says, I want to build a business that is going to make, I don't know, $500 million by next year. That's a good goal. That's precise. That's clear, but it's not really doable.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't matter how I try to convince myself, there is part of my mind that goes, nah, that's not really going to happen. So that's the intellectual part of it. Logically, it should make sense. And emotionally, we should really want it more than anything else, and having that desire for it. Now, this is our connection with our goal. And we need to use a time frame that allows us to naturally hold that connection active and alive all the time, which we don't necessarily do. Hence, it is also called the New Year's resolution. Because 1 year from now is so far in the future that we are unable to keep that connection. We're not robots. We're human beings. We have thoughts, we have feelings, and that sort of thing. So it needs to be shorter. 1 year from now is so far in the future that even if it's logical, we can't hold an emotional connection for that long, for that far in the future. We end up losing the game to what's right in front of us. That's important, urgent kind of a thing. So we need to shorten that time frame. So you might think, okay, 1 month. I'm gonna have 1 month goals, which is fine. Yeah, we can keep our connection and work with it, but it's not very practical because 1 month is not long enough to create significant change. That's the nature of the beast. That's how business is. Hence, 90 days seems to be a good amount of time. And as you can see, we have seasons, we have quarters in business, and all that. Everything is around that. So I like to work with my clients in 90-day periods. I don't work shorter. Nobody, I won't accept a client for 1 month or 2 months. We work with each other for minimum 90 days because we want to stay connected and create significant change. And it's a good amount of time to revisit and renew our goals and vision and all of that. We can break it down into 2 cycles of 2 6 weeks and that sort of thing, but the whole time frame is 90 days. Now, going back to your question, what questions should I be asking? What should I be thinking about? How my why is related? What hows and what what's are going to be? If you think 90 days, so many of them, they don't even come up to your mind. You're free of them because you gave yourself this 90-day period kind of a thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you shorten the time frame to really just narrow your own focus so that a lot of those questions they just can't come up because it would require you to think beyond the 90 days.
Yeah, they naturally don't come up. So we are free. But if you don't have that time frame, as I said, it could be a wrong kind of a time frame. We can have a 1 year time frame. Doesn't matter. Having a time frame helps us with elimination of all of the irrelevant questions. Having a 90-day time frame makes it practical and doable.
Right.
Yes.
I like that. Well, we've definitely covered quite a bit. We went on a little bit of not a tangent, but we went a direction I actually wasn't expecting, which was really nice. But coming out of that, what would be the one piece of advice you'd want to share with the audience so that they could take action and help themselves level up wherever they need it most?
Right. Break things into smaller steps. Unfortunately, this clear example to show us how to do things done has backfired. When we say you are at point A and you want to get to point B, and we draw an arrow in between and we say, this is how you do it. Point A to point B. But that also implies that from point A to point B, there is only one step. But it's not. Point B is the ultimate. So I would say, do yourself a favor. Don't go from point A to point B. Go from point A to point Z or Z, depending if you're in Canada or US. And which implies and gives you the permission to have a B and a C and a D and an E and F. So you say, okay, I'm here. I want to get to letters Z or Z. So what's the next one, which is B, that gets me closer to that? What's the next one that gets me closer to that? So make it so small that is actionable now. Now, the now is relevant. It could be your next hour, could be your today, could be this week. You determine that because you're asking your question in a time frame, but you want to be something that you can start and goes to a little bit further. So break things into smaller pieces is the one thing that I would say helps us to keep moving, stay moving, and gain momentum as we go. Too far in the future, time-wise or goal-wise, and missing all of the steps in between doesn't help. Simpler way of saying that is baby steps.
Yeah.
What is one thing that they can do? Baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think that's great advice. It's come up a couple of times in other conversations. So there's obviously got to be some validity and value there. So
yeah.
Final question, Kayvon, before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
If people wanted to reach out and connect with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
My website is simplify.zone. And first I was bummed that I didn't get .com. Somebody else had it. But then I thought, no, this is actually a better advantage. This is the zone of simplification.
Yeah, I like it. I think
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's unique for sure.
Yes, thanks.
All right, it's been an absolute pleasure, Kayvon. Thank you very much again for being a guest. Definitely looking forward to future conversations.
Yeah.
Productivity is definitely an area I like to chat about.
Yes, anytime. This was fun. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Get Coach 360. If you're looking for more information, you can head over to our website, which is getcoach360.com. You'll find the show notes for this and every other episode there. And if getting actionable advice every week from professional coaches is something you want more of, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.